Have you ever noticed that Jesus had a lot to say about sowing and reaping in the Bible? If you're new to reading the scriptures, some examples and parables Jesus gives doesn't make a lot of sense unless you lived in that day and culture. For instance, the words sowing and reaping are actually farming terms that basically mean planting and harvesting that farmers of the day would have been very familiar with. Even if your main occupation wasn't farming, it was very common for families to grow their own vegetables and fruits because Kroger wasn't a thing back then. All throughout scripture, we see this idea of sowing and reaping. Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians, "Remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop." There's a few powerful truths about sowing and reaping, and I want to share a few of them today. The first thing is this: you will reap what you sow. Meaning, if you sow good seed in good soil, you will receive a good crop. But obviously, Jesus isn't just talking about physical seed, but the seeds that we sow with our lives. If you sow joy, you will reap joy. If you sow bitterness and anger, you will also reap bitterness and anger. You cannot change this principle. We know we will reap what we sow. The second truth is that we will reap more than what we sow. Now, that could be a good thing when we're sowing good things like love, joy, peace, and other fruits of the Spirit, but it can be equally damaging if we're sowing things like unforgiveness, hatred, and contempt. Finally, the last truth is we will reap only after we sow. There is no way of getting around it. If we want to reap a harvest, we have to sow first. So let me say them again. We reap what we sow. We reap more than what we sow, and we only reap after we sow. Perhaps today is the time to take inventory of your life. Are you sowing? What are you sowing? And how are you sowing it? And where are you sowing it? These are great questions to ask ourselves and let God speak to us. When we take an honest look at our lives from this perspective, I believe it will not only help us sow in the right places, but with the right seed as well. As the scriptures say, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop.